Okay, I think we should be live now.
Well, hello everyone.
just give it a couple of minutes. I think sometimes it takes a couple of minutes
Yeah,
just for everything to kind of begin, right? So
yeah.
it should be loaded in a couple of minutes. Okay, perfect. Okay, we're live. First of all,
Okay.
Katie, I wanna thank you so much for attending my series and welcome to the 2021 Leaders in Trade Compliance. So thank you so much for saying yes to this, and I
Well,
really
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for
Yeah,
having me. It's really exciting, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, definitely. With all your background and everything, I'm humbled that you would say yes to someone like me. So I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you reaching out to me. The more people that we can really explain about, and get interested in trade compliance,
Mm-hmm.
it's so important and it's so interesting for so
Mm-hmm.
many people. I can honestly say I don't think I've ever had a boring day. I've never done the same thing twice.
Yeah.
It's just a very exciting field. I remember when I first got into it, I thought this is just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's been fun. It's been a really great career. You get to mix not only trade, law, regulations, logistics. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you're always you're the person that's in the center of the wheel. You know,
Yeah. No, definitely.
you touch on in any organization, you touch on accounting, finance, supply chain, um, legal. Everyone knows you. You know,
Especially now, right? I mean, with everything going on, everyone has to know you.
yes,
Yeah.
especially now.
Mm-hmm.
Things have, with the former administration, things changed very rapidly. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I had seen probably more change in the last 4 years than I had in 20 years,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I know.
and not all for the good. But some of it was good. I
Yeah.
think
Mm-hmm.
some of it was good, and it brought trade compliance to the forefront
Mm-hmm.
of people's minds. For a long time, trade compliance was thought of as the sales inhibitors.
Mm-hmm.
We would say, no, you can't do that, or, things like that. But what it really did in the last 4 years is that people said, well, we need someone that's going to monitor this. The rules, the regulations, things were changing at such a rapid rate. I always tell people I used to know where the shots were coming from, but then I got to the point I didn't even know where to duck because
Mm-hmm.
everything was changing so rapidly. And
Yeah.
this is coming at you, especially with export controls, you know, imports, the Section 301 tariffs, the
Mm-hmm.
the steel and aluminum tariffs. So it really it you're always having to read and learn new things.
Mm-hmm. No,
It's
definitely.
definitely not a very stagnant
Mm-hmm.
career. It's not like, well, I did this last year, so it'll apply again. You might want to check on that because the rules of the game
Mm-hmm.
might have changed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot has changed, with the past 4 years, especially. I mean, I feel like there's something new every single day, and whether we're talking about importation or exportation, everything is a constant change. It's not the same.
It is, and you have to be so careful because you're really brought into a lot of different things,
Mm-hmm.
not just OFAC, to make sure that you're dealing with companies that are ethical, but now, you're bringing things in like, child labor and things like that. So one of the things with trade compliance is it gives you a really good understanding of really what's happening in the world, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So you can, in before in trade compliance, I mean, before, I was actually in avionic electronics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I used to fix the black boxes and the instruments on aircraft. All right.
Oh, wow.
So it was very, you had a very limited view of what was going on in the
Mm-hmm.
world because you were
Mm-hmm.
concerned in this. And one of the things that trade compliance does is it opens up your world, and you're looking at what other countries are doing and how they're addressing world problems.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
just look at what, we've done to, we're not allowing certain companies in China to import into the United States, and we can't
Mm-hmm.
export to them because of, you know, um, different reasons.
Of
Some
course.
of it has to be with espionage, some of it with, persecution.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it opens up your eyes.
Yeah, definitely. Trade compliance, I feel it's more of a global thing now than a
Yes,
regional or local thing, So you have to know how your country is connected to any other country you're dealing with, whether it's importation or exportation. So it's kind of like you have to know, not just know your rules and regulation, you have to be able to connect it to the other country's rules and regulation, make sure that everything is making sense. You don't want to
yes.
break their laws, you don't want to break your own laws. So it's kind of like a connection that you want to make sure that you have everything understood.
The world is flat.
If you say
Because
so.
we're so connected. you
Hmm.
know I remember when I first got into trade compliance, I actually worked for a small importer that designed kitchen textiles and giftware in India, and
Uh-huh.
we were importing things. And I can remember walking into the office, and this is before internet and everything, and
Hmm.
seeing coming in the morning, and we had a fax machine, and they had the old thermal paper and having reams and reams of paper all over the floor from faxes that we received from India.
Hmm.
And everything, when an entry was done, a courier had to take the documents over to customs.
Yeah.
you know
Hmm.
so things, and it was very manual and labor intensive. I mean, you had
Hmm.
to go through all of your packing lists and make sure that the numbers added up, because it was a manual process.
Hmm. Yeah.
Nothing was really done on computers. And now everything is just boom boom, click and go.
Yeah.
So
I mean, Ace is amazing. You have all your data over there. It's a single window kind of
ace
software. It's amazing.
ACE is wonderful if you only use it as a database to
Hmm.
pull all of your past information, just to be able to see where are you, you know,
Hmm.
especially for a trade compliance person that is walking into a new business. All right.
Hmm.
You change jobs, you're walking in fresh. First thing I do is get into ACE and start pulling data so that I can understand really what I've gotten myself into. How
Hmm.
many imports do they do in a year? How many exports? What are the HTS codes? Where are they importing from?
Hmm.
These things are all available to you in ACE. You
Yeah.
can create reports, and then I take those reports and I make all these pivot tables, and I send out analytics every month to all of
Hmm.
my divisions so that I can say, hey, this is what we have. Or I look at all of my imports and I turn around and say, whoa, this broker, they didn't file this exception.
Hmm.
So then I
Yeah.
can do a PSC and boom, get money back.
Hmm.
Do you need to have a broker's license for ACE? No, you do not.
I
You
was
need
just gonna
to
point
be
that out.
you need to be an importer, and you fill out all the forms, and you just go ahead and get ACE all set up for your business, and it's wonderful. It's a wealth of knowledge.
Hmm.
So I would strongly suggest getting set up on ACE, and you'll love it.
Yeah.
Just being able to look at the history
Yeah,
helps.
I know it's definitely worthwhile. If you're an importer or a self-filer, you need to set yourself up with ACE. It just gives you a whole bigger picture that otherwise you simply can't have unless you somehow manage to kind of sort all your data, daily data that comes in, which is not possible.
No, it's not possible. And so what I do is I run monthly reports, and then I take those reports and I add them to some other reports that I do. And then, I recently had my boss, who's over in Belgium, say, "Hey, I've got to do this presentation for this division. Can you send me some info?" And I already had everything. I was
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
"Sure, here, boom, 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 boom." This shows you, 2018, 2019, 2020, all of the imports that we did, all of the HTS codes, dollar values, what we paid in duty, and everything. So you have all of that information, and it's wonderful. It makes you look like you are right on top of
It seems
it.
like you have magic, right? I mean, to people
Exactly.
who don't know, yeah.
Wow, I didn't know this was there. You're like, oh yeah, I've got it. No problem.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
exactly.
it's really those kind of tools, prior to ACE, everything was manual. You
Hmm.
know, you plugged everything into an Excel spreadsheet and you hoped it was going to be right.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I can't even imagine because I wasn't in this field at that time. I just entered this field back in 2016. Before that, I didn't even know what trade compliance was, honestly. So I'm glad I wasn't here when we had to do everything manually. But it's good. I mean, that's something you have to go through. I
you'd be,
guess.
you'd be surprised how many companies out there do not have access to ACE.
Hmm.
You know, they don't really, you have a lot of smaller importers that really don't have a trade compliance person, and
Hmm.
they haven't gone in and gotten access to it. But if you're in trade compliance and you switch, you might move to a new position somewhere. First thing you do is get them set on ACE, and then you can see what is going on. You
Hmm.
know, another thing about this career field is you'll find some of the greatest connections and mentors that you could possibly ask for. I have, if I have a certain issue, a problem that I'm trying to figure out, and I want to bounce my idea off of someone, I can reach out to really, literally anyone. And
Hmm.
I've never had anyone say, sorry, not helping you. You know, there's great organizations, ICPA, fantastic organization.
Hmm.
I think, your first year is free to sign up. And then I think after that, I'm not sure, I think it's $100 a year. If you're a
I
veteran, I
believe
think
so.
it's
I'm not a member, but I believe you're right on the
yeah,
pricing as well. The first year is free, and then after that, it's $100 per year. But
right.
I've seen some of their posting and stuff, and it seems very helpful. It's definitely
Every
it seems like it's worthwhile.
You can ask a question to it, just you ask a question and it goes out to every member, and then people can reply, and I get the questions and the answers every day. It's fascinating,
Hmm.
because you'll see people that are working in pharmaceuticals or working with textiles or automotive or aircraft or chemicals, whatever. So even though, like, I started off in textiles, then I worked in semiconductor, now I'm kind of in a little bit of everything. We do catalysts for automotive, gold, silver, palladium, electronics, even infrared camera lenses, So it's really nice with something like ICPA, and then plus if you have a question, you can go on there and look in the answers database and
Hmm.
also find out information. You know, with USMCA, that was interesting last year. I mean, we've never had that I can remember a trade agreement that happened mid-year.
Yeah.
Usually
Hmm.
it's the first of the year, mid-year. Well, we didn't even get the rules of origin, I don't think, until 48 hours prior. So there were a lot of people scrambling,
Hmm.
on that. So, when people have questions on it, they can simply ask the group and somebody will have an answer. I was
Definitely.
fortunate. I worked with a task force that worked with customs on writing some of the rules of origin for automotive.
Hmm.
So I had a little bit of a insight, ahead of time.
Hmm.
So my group was pretty much ready for it, but it was a lot of scrambling. It was a lot of
Yeah,
scrambling
definitely.
this year.
I know. I remember last year it was a lot of people trying to find answers for pretty much everything, right?
Yeah,
So, yeah, and the one good thing about customs trade compliance is that everyone kind of knows everyone, so you can go to other people, whether it's
right,
an organization or it's other individuals, or even just on LinkedIn, or in my case,
right.
people sometimes email me through my YouTube channel, and they ask me all kind of questions, and it's good to have this kind of network,
Yes,
you know.
exactly. I get questions all the time. People send me,
Hmm.
friend requests on LinkedIn, and then
Hmm.
they'll ask me a question, and I'll try and help whatever way I can.
Hmm.
It's all about giving back. We're
Yeah.
all in the same boat together. Everybody grab an oar.
Mhm. Definitely. I know. So Katie, I want to take a step back. I have a lot of people on YouTube which generally send me questions, just like regular questions, because they're trying to find a way, I guess, trying to either get into trade compliance or try to make progress in their career. So I want to take a step back and kind of talk about your journey, where you began, what kind of stuff you faced through your career to get where you are today. And for example, why did you succeed when your peers might not have? That kind of stuff.
I think what it is, trade compliance in most organizations, nobody really wants to do it.
Hmm.
Okay. Every organization that I've been in, they've gone and run.
Hmm.
And so when you step forward and say, I'll take that, you know, I always tell my children that I'd rather you have a lifetime of OLs than a lifetime of what ifs.
Hmm.
So my suggestion is just if there's a problem, you know, instead of saying, whoa, I'm not taking that one, say, okay, I'm going to do it. You know, let me learn, let me figure it out.
Hmm.
And there's resources out there to help you. So, I don't mind, hey, anybody just, connect with me on LinkedIn and ask me a question. I'm more than happy to help you, you know.
Hmm.
Um, there's, I think everybody in this field will do that. Go to your YouTube channel. You can get a lot of information from that.
Hmm.
There's always, I subscribe to all kinds of different, trade updates and things like that, just so that I can learn more,
Yeah.
but always never shy away from it.
Hmm.
Always, jump in and say, yeah, I'll try it. I'll
Hmm.
take a look at it.
Yeah. Hmm.
And
I
being
agree.
a woman in the semiconductor field, trust me, it's a little difficult.
Uh,
But I've never had any problem. I've never had anyone say, "Oh, I'm not listening to her." They're all like, "Okay, well, what do you think?"
mhm. Yeah.
And have always been very receptive.
Yeah, makes sense. It was the same with me. when I began this career, I honestly had no idea what it was. It was
Mhm.
pretty much me after my MBA kind of applying to different jobs, and then I just happened to land in trade compliance at that time, and that's where my career began. But you're right. I mean, when you see an opportunity, you have to kind of step up and tell the people around you that you want to do that. I did the same thing, whether when I was an intern, whether I was working as an analyst in the beginning, it was always me trying to find a way to improve stuff, even if no one was asking me what they can do to improve the stuff. So I feel like if you want to succeed in this career, you kind of have to go out there and kind of take it. That's the way
Yes,
it
you
seems
do.
like. Hmm.
You are going to have to be the one that steps forward and
Yeah.
takes it. You know, I also have an MBA, but if you notice after my name, it says LCB. That licensed customs broker means more to me
I
than,
know.
and my MBA I love. I'm glad I got it. It's great, whatever. But that LCB, it was a lot of work, you
How
know,
many times did you take the exam?
one time.
One. Me too.
Yeah, I passed on the first go round. You know,
Awesome.
how I don't know. It is the fastest 4.5 hours you will ever have in your life.
Hmm.
I started taking it, and I remember I was like, to question like 25, and they said, "Oh, 1 hour has passed." I thought, I'm doing great. So I
Hmm.
just kept going. I got to the end and I said, okay, now I'm going to go back and review the ones that I put little checks that I wanted to check them. And I got to like question 5 and they said, and you have 10 minutes left. And I went, it flew by. It
Hmm.
was amazing how quickly that time went.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of work. It's a lot of studying, and it's knowing where to find the answers. It doesn't make you any smarter than anybody else because you have your license or not. What it taught me was where to find the answers, where to
Hmm.
find them in the Title 19, how to figure out, you know, your your different HTS codes.
Hmm.
And it's still very difficult,
Yeah, of
especially
course.
with new technology. you know, as I told you earlier, you're a geek when you're sitting on a Saturday on your couch and you go, hey, that's really interesting technology. I wonder what the HTS code is. And you start reading binding rulings just to figure out how customs thinks,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
and going through your different GRIs, to
Yeah.
figure out how to classify something. You
Hmm.
know, I have a friend that has come up with this new technology, and at first I thought, well, it should be this. And then I got to thinking about it. Now, no, it should be this, and I started researching more. And it's interesting to me,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah. And I feel like to succeed, you have to love this field in a way where you kind of love doing multiple things. You have to kind of love the chaos it comes with. If you're the kind of person who just wants to do one thing every single day or the same thing every single day, you're not gonna go that far.
You're not going to like it. I was telling you a story about one time on a Saturday, I was hiking up a mountain,
Hmm.
and I'm on top of the mountain with my phone in the air trying to get reception because I had to get a shipment from Japan to Hong Kong because I had a line going down in China. And I
Hmm.
had to get this shipment. So I had to make sure it got exported, it got picked up and flown to Hong Kong so it could land and we could get it into China right away because we had a line going down. But here I
Hmm.
am on top of a mountain trying to get reception. So you will find you'll be doing crazy things like that,
Yeah.
you
And I
know.
feel like every single time you really need the internet, your computer crashes or you just don't have a Wi-Fi. That's happened to me so many times. There was an urgent shipment. I'm like, my laptop's not even loading up. It just takes so long just to load up. I'm like, what's happening? Why today?
It was funny. It was probably about a month and a half ago. my internet kept going out in my house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My office, they had some kind of flooding, so we couldn't even go into the office. And
Mm-hmm.
my internet was going out. So I run down to Staples real quick and I figured, well, maybe it's my router. And I get a new router and I get it hooked up because that takes time,
Mm-hmm.
get it all hooked up. I'm good for about an hour and then boom, it goes out again. And my phone wouldn't work. So I'm running down the street trying to get reception. I have two cell phones. Neither one of
Mm-hmm.
them would work. And I'm running down the street trying to get reception because I had an urgent shipment.
Yeah. No.
But it's those kind of things that
Mm-hmm.
there's there's always going to be some kind of issue.
Yeah.
And you just have to figure out how to fix it, you know?
Yeah, I feel like whether you're working for an importer or
Yeah,
whether you're working for a broker or a transportation logistics person, a company. I mean, there's always that rush. If,
yeah,
the- if it feels like there's always like shipment that somehow mess up, and then at the end of the day, you have to somehow figure out a way to get that shipment across the border, whether it's inside US, whether it's between other countries. There's always something new coming up, and it's a new thing every single time.
yeah.
It's not like it's the same thing happening again and again. It's a new thing that kind of comes up, and you can't really plan for it ahead of time.
Well, the benefits of having your license, okay. Do people take you more seriously? Yes. And
Mhm,
do you receive more messages from headhunters? Absolutely.
mm,
Um, how I got my position now was one of the things they, LCB preferred. Okay. They weren't like, oh my God, you have to have one. But it does put you a step ahead. You know,
yeah,
they will take you more seriously. They know that you've had the training, that you can do this, and taking the exam, it is hard. It is, I mean, I think it's something like 60% of the people that take the bar exam pass, and 20% of the people that take the LCB, licensed customs broker exam pass. So,
when sorry to chime in, when I took my exam, which was in 2019, less than 4% of the people passed.
yeah, I took the last written one.
Hmm.
So I don't remember how many it was. I was just glad I passed, and
Hmm.
it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you get a 98 or if you get a 70.
Hmm. Yeah.
70 is passing, just get this, or whatever it is to pass, just get that,
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
a pass is a pass. But I would strongly suggest getting it. It does put you ahead. I get emails weekly from headhunters. You know, they're looking for someone, and it might be, oh, I've got this position in Chicago and Milwaukee. I live in Raleigh. I'm not interested in moving. Charlotte, Greensboro, all over. But you get how I got my position actually was I had a recruiter from England reach out to me.
Wow.
And I was like, hey, I'll talk to her. I didn't know that the position was going to be right here in Raleigh, but
Hmm.
it does give you a bigger opportunity,
Hmm.
and you're able to negotiate more.
Yeah.
You know,
I totally agree
let's
with you. I mean,
let's be
that like.
honest.
Mhm.
It's going to give you more money. You
Yeah, that
know,
license definitely has value, to the people who want to hire you and the
yeah,
recruiters that are looking for you. Even though, like you said, it doesn't make you any smarter than the next person. The fact that you took that exam and you were able to pass it,
right.
that's what gives it value, and that
And
matters.
and I'll be honest with you, if between an LCB and an MBA, I'd go for the LCB. I have
I
both,
agree.
but
Hmm.
I would, if you want to go into trade compliance, the MBA is great because I can also, move things into finance and things like that. But You just passed your exam. Yay! No, I've never worked for a freight forwarder or a customs brokerage, industry. I actually work, for manufacturers. I
Mhm.
have never worked for a customs broker or a freight forwarder.
I
So
think with this person, what they probably mean is they're not in this industry at all. They're probably just outside of it. So in order to get into this field, should they be looking to apply to jobs as, for example, with a freight forwarder or custom brokerage, or should they just kind of apply anywhere
nope.
they can?
I would say, go and apply for, a manufacturer that's looking for a compliance analyst or
Hmm.
whatever to get your foot in the door. I don't, from my understanding of people that I know who have worked at freight forwarding companies and stuff like that, the pay is going to be better at a manufacturer.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
you know, and you're going to be able to really kind of hone your skills with a manufacturer, I feel, because you're going to learn that industry. And even though, I've gone to different industries, I feel that because I knew what I was doing in the semiconductor, I could turn around and move that to another industry, and I know how to find all the answers. You
Hmm.
know, about CCS or LCB, I just have my LCB, you know.
Yes.
Um,
So do I. I feel like with CCS, I mean, you can get that if you have an LCB anyway. There's nothing special required. If you have an LCB, you can kind of join an organization and get the CCS through them.
right.
So to me, I haven't found. I mean, to me, it doesn't represent anything special. I can have the title, but it's nothing that I have to work extra for. If you have to choose between the two, I would say go for the LCB, right?
Yes, I would definitely say, if I had a choice between either one, I would, it's go for the gold standard and go for the
Mhm.
LCD. One of the things that they are talking about now, though, is that continuing education. Okay.
Mhm.
And I think that's a great idea. I know for myself, I am reading something every single day. I'm attending, I sign up for all kinds of different seminars and things like that. Um, it's I don't have an issue with the continuing education. I think it's a really good thing because, as we said before, everything is changing all of the time.
Mhm.
I had a friend who went, when we were younger, she went and got her master's degree in computer science back in 1983, 84. Okay. Then she had kids and she never used it. And then when
Mhm.
her kids went to school, she's like, well, I need to find a job. She's got a master's degree in computers. Computers are a whole lot different than they were in 1984.
Yeah.
So her degree was worthless. And not to say that the LCB would ever be worthless, but you always have to take those classes. You always have to stay on top of it. You always have to learn more
Mhm.
because it is an ever changing career field.
Yeah, definitely.
Technology changes. I
Mhm.
mean, just look at, customs, they're always having to change HTS codes and add some and everything else. Like when the LED light bulb came out, you know, they didn't have a place for it. When
Mhm.
those cigarette vaping things, they had to come up with an HTS code because they didn't have one. So, because technology is always changing, you know, this field is always changing.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, you
look at
have to.
just electric vehicles. you
That's gonna
know?
change everything, I mean, the
Yeah,
regulation, the HTS codes. I feel like once the EVs become normal, I mean, everything's gonna change because everything is kind of gonna shift with it.
yeah,
Whether we talk about vehicles only or other stuff that's connected to it, everything is gonna change. So they're gonna have to come up with more regulation, more export control, more import regulations, and
mhm.
even the HTS codes. The whole thing is gonna change.
Exactly, exactly. It is already changing, you know?
Yeah,
So, the technology in the EV batteries is changing. You know,
yeah.
the
hmm
first generation, electric car battery with Tesla is nothing like the new car battery that's going to be used in the Lucid that's
Yeah.
coming out,
hmm
so the technology is always changing, and that's one of the things that I like about this is that the technology is changing all the
hmm
time, so you're always trying to figure out what's the next big thing.
Yeah.
So it's really fun. It's really fun, and it will
Def-
help you if you invest in stocks because you're going to know what is the next big thing,
uh-huh.
and you're going to know it ahead of time. So
Yeah.
that's one of the fun things,
Yeah.
just a little side note there for everybody. I do, I use it that way.
I know what you mean. Uh, One question I was thinking of is if you don't have an LCB, because sometimes it's really tough to pass that exam,
Right.
is it worth having a CCS if you can't get an LCB?
Absolutely. 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 And just the fact that you put yourself out there, that you're willing to take this step and
hmm
jump in over here and learn, that is what it's going to do. What is this? Only a housewife? Come on, you run an entire house. That is not only, okay. And you have a bachelor's and a business and a master's degree. And I'm taking the CBL exam in April or the LCB. Okay, in
Okay.
April. Um, since kids will be full time in the fall. Congratulations! Gosh, I don't know how you're doing it because it's a lot of work.
hmm
Um, so good luck on the exam. Some things I can tell you about the exam. Number one, tab everything so you know where to find the answers. Um,
Nowadays they have an electronic version of all the regulation for the examinees, but the problem is they tried it for the first time last time, and it crashed so many computers. It was pretty much
no,
useless.
I would I would go ahead and have it printed. I had mine in racks. Okay. I mean,
Mhm.
this big, huge things on my desk. And I had everything tabbed and also print out the old exams and go through them and bring those in with you. Okay. You are allowed to bring them in because I found that some of the questions were the same, especially when it came to the classification.
Mhm.
So that'll help. But you're gonna you're gonna be fine. It's gonna be hard. It's hard to study. For me, it was hard to study just for myself.
Mhm.
But with kids around and everything, it is difficult. I don't know how, all of these parents have been able to work, take care of kids and everything during the pandemic.
Mhm.
I've always told everybody that my kids would have been dumb as bricks because I would have said field trip to the beach, because my daughter said, "No, mom, you would have just locked yourself in the bedroom, because you couldn't deal with it." I said,
Mhm.
"Exactly." So the parents that have dealt with all of this during the pandemic, congratulations, and to be able to study for the LCB, if there's any questions you have, if there's anything I can do to help you, please reach out to me. Just connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to help you. Um, when I took it, it was, I went through every single question. I found every answer in the book, basically word for word. So,
That's what I did too.
mhm.
Whenever I talk to someone, I always tell them, do not try to memorize anything because
No.
what you need to do is figure out a quick way to find stuff. And
Yep.
one way to do that is use different types of highlighters. For
Yes.
example, I always tell people to use yellow for general stuff, blue for like forms and stuff, red for monetary penalties and stuff like that.
Yes.
Come up with your own method and
Come
do
up with
not
your
try
own
to
method.
do not try
Yes.
to memorize anything at all. Eventually you will because you'll do so many practice exams, but you shouldn't purposely be trying to memorize anything for the exam.
Yep. We have another question. When you say working for a manufacturer as a start, it refers to big companies which have their own compliance department, customs brokers department. Okay. I went to work for a large semiconductor company, okay, when I first moved up to Raleigh. And I walked in, I started in logistics, and I said, oh, okay, who's the trade compliance person here? And they said, well, we don't have one. Okay, opportunity for me. And so I just took it. And um, I just said, well, okay, there's an opportunity for me. I'm going to carve this out and make this my own. A
Hmm.
lot of companies don't have an actual trade compliance department. They have somebody that works in EH&S and does compliance on the side, or they do engineering and compliance on the side, or they do logistics and compliance on the side. And so what I would suggest is, you get into these and then you form the job yourself. And
Hmm.
that's what I have done at every place I've been is I got my foot in the door and then I created my own role,
Hmm. You have
you
to
know?
bring the value to the company. And
Exactly.
also even the companies that do have a custom department, usually it's maybe one or two people. So they're always wanting to get more people in somehow. If you can bring that value, if you can show that you're going to be valuable to trade compliance, I mean, they'll figure out a way
Yeah,
to bring you in. Because as long
exactly.
as you're helping them save money, if you're helping them be compliant, and you can show that, I mean, I feel like you can kind of create your own position.
I had somebody ask me, they said, describe your job in 5 words.
Hmm.
And I said, oh, easy. Keep you out of jail.
I know. Hmm.
It
Perfect.
was keep you out of jail. And
Perfect five
that's
words.
what that's one of the things, on the exams, how far back should you go? I'd print out as many as I possibly could.
Hmm.
I think I went back like 5 years, and
I
printed
went back
out 10 of them.
further. I think I went
Yeah.
back 10 years when I was doing mine.
Yeah.
Just I know things change, but it's just the process, you get used to it. And then for the first couple of exams I just took as much time as it took me to go through them. And once I got the hang of it, after 2, 3 exams, that's when I started timing myself. And then so I'm like, okay, I need to use the timing to actually get the
Yeah.
process down more.
Exactly. And what I did is I, would just go through and then figure out what the answers and always write down where you found the answer,
Hmm.
except for on your classification. Everyone gets hung up on the classification ones, but there's really only like 10
Hmm.
classification
I
questions.
think I think they're more now, 15 or something.
Yeah, something like that. And some of them are just very, very easy. And one of the things is on those classifications, look in the chapter notes
You
at the
have to.
front
A lot of people say
because
you're not supposed to.
most of the time you're going to find the answer to the classification question in the chapter notes.
Mhm.
You
I
know,
totally agree with you.
they might have on there the vapor, cigarette things, you know, that isn't really in the HTS codes. It's in the chapter note in the front, you know.
Mhm.
And what they'll do is they'll have, oh, this is an LED flashlight, and they'll give you 4 HTS codes. And one of them might be, you know, 1213, blah, 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 blah. Well, you can cross that right out right away because you know that that chapter doesn't even have anything to do with it. So
Mm-hmm.
you are usually able to kind of break it down to two, and then you can investigate those two HTS
Yeah.
codes
Mm-hmm.
and whatever one looks the closest.
Mm-hmm. And if they're giving you answers which fall into more than one chapter and the chapters are closed, you always want to look at the section of the chapter notes because for some reason the chapter notes are gonna kind of exclude one completely.
Yes, it will. It will. That's something that, ha ha ha.
Mm.
They
Yeah.
don't tell you that when you're taking the exam.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Another question.
Yeah, a retired engineer with experience has a chance in classification analyst career. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Probably be a fantastic classification analyst
Mm-hmm.
because you have that engineering background. I used to sit down with engineers and PhDs, and I would have to say, okay, guys, dumb it down for me, explain to me what this does, and then I would then turn around and ask them questions. But if you have an engineering degree, or engineering experience, you're going to be amazing in classification. You're really
Mm.
going to be up, you're going to be ahead. I would
Yeah.
strongly suggest looking into it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting. I just find it's so interesting when I read, look at binding rulings. You can go to, whatever the website is for just type in binding rulings and to CBP, and you'll be able to just, you can say LED light bulb, you know, and then you'll see a list will come out with all these different binding rulings, and some of them are really old, and it might not have everything that you want, but you can look that up, or, you know, throw in a toaster, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and then you'll read about all these different toasters and how they're classified. And sometimes the classifications make no sense, and they are different.
Mm-hmm.
They'll give you a different classification, which I always find fascinating. And then I use it as a guide for me, you know, um, as just, okay, this will put me in the right area. And then I go from there to kind of really dig in a little bit more. And then I also, when I do a classification, I write down, by GRI1, da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
So if I leave this organization and I go somewhere else, the next person coming in has that backup.
Mm-hmm.
Always leave a good trail for the next one.
Yeah,
You
it's always
know,
good to have an audit trail.
it's nice. And the other thing is, if customs says, why did you choose this? Or they stop your shipment coming across the border, they let it go, but then you get this nasty gram from customs that says, we opened up your container and we feel that classification was wrong and you owe us X amount, this is the fine, and X amount of dollars. Then you could turn around and go back to them. And I have written many protests, and I go back and I say, well, no, based on this, here's a picture of the drawing, this is the
Mm-hmm.
information based on GRI1, da 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 da. I go through, and then they come back and they go, oh, okay, you're probably right,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
I've never had a problem, with customs arguing about what I have classified something
Mm-hmm.
as.
And like you told me before, CBP is there to help you out. They're not
Yeah,
there to get you. They just want to make sure that whatever you did, it makes sense. So as long as you
right.
know what you're doing, and even if you don't know what you're doing, you should always go to them and ask them. If you have a question, any kind, whether it's
Right.
HTS ruling, whether it's something else, just regulation, you can always go to CBP and ask them like what you should be doing.
Exactly. So many people that I talk to are like, oh, CBP, oh, they're scared, they're the bad guys. They're really not.
Hmm.
They're there to help you.
Yeah.
And they want you to do the right thing and you want to do the right thing. And so as long as you can explain to them your reasoning behind that, they
Hmm.
might not agree with it, but they feel that you actually put thought into it and you had a reasoning, and they might say, well, I see where you're going, but we really think it's this. Then you're going to be okay. You know,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
when you ignore them or you try to hide something, then that's when they're going to get angry and then they'll come back to you.
Hmm.
So, having an engineering experience will greatly help you in trade compliance. Yes. And yes, always when you're always looking through CAD drawings and things, you're going to be so far ahead of just someone
Hmm.
that doesn't have that engineering experience.
I
You
know. I
know,
remember when I started, I didn't have an engineering background, right? So when I started looking at all those CAD drawing, it took a while to kind of take in and how all those drawings even work or which kind of measurements it was using and everything, you know. So if
right?
you already have that kind of background, that's really gonna help you with getting the classification right or kind of understanding why you're doing what you're doing. Things are gonna make a lot more
Exactly.
sense to you.
It's
Yep.
it's really going to help you, especially if you're in any kind of electronics,
Mm-hmm.
semiconductor industry. Now, if you go to work for somebody that's in textiles, probably not. But you have that analytical brain, so
Mm-hmm.
you'll be able to set a course and know
Yeah.
exactly what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, and you'll learn something new.
Mm-hmm.
That's the whole thing. In this career, I'm always learning something. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I've just now I'm involved in catalysts for EV batteries, and I'm studying EV batteries and lithium and everything else. And I never thought that I would be doing something like this. You know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've been
Mm-hmm.
able to travel. It's great. I was over in Belgium last year. That was a lot of fun right before COVID kicked off. This year, I haven't been able to travel at all, but then again, no one has. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
hopefully
Mm-hmm.
next year I'll be able to again,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hopefully
But
everything is back to normal by then.
yeah.
So, Katie, my last question to you, I guess, would be, what do you think is going to happen in the next 4 years with the new administration uh,
Ah,
coming in?
boy. Well, hopefully some stability. I'm hoping that things will stabilize a little bit. I don't anticipate in this first year really any changes. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, I've heard all Biden's friends with China. Da, da, da. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that we're still going to have the war against China, the trade
Mm-hmm.
war.
Yeah.
I think you have the Republicans and the Democrats that, are really both on the same side of that, the stealing of IP and things like that. So I don't think there's going to be any changes in this year. I'm hoping that we'll be able to form better alliances, you know, with Europe, with the UK, even though UK just broke off and you had Brexit and everything else, that was a little bit of a mess, still is, but it's getting better. And but I think I'm hoping to have things to be a little bit more stable. you
Mm-hmm.
know. I felt that the last administration, well, some good things that came out of it is trade compliance became much more important. You know, when
Mm-hmm.
the CEO knows your first name and knows exactly where your desk is, that's not always a bad thing, you know.
It depends on what you did. It depends on your ACE data, right?
Exactly. Um, but it's really brought trade compliance to the forefront.
Mm-hmm.
It's made companies realize just how important it is, and
Mm-hmm.
that staying in compliance, and also that you can find opportunities to save money,
Mm-hmm.
with all of the tariffs, and
Yeah.
applying for exclusions and different, the MTB. We're still waiting on the MTB to be approved.
Mm-hmm.
But you can bring value to a company, and that's one of the things that really these last 4 years have shown. You know,
Mm-hmm.
where
Yeah.
before I said we were the sales inhibitors, but now we are bringing value to a company.
Yeah.
Instead of
Mm-hmm.
being the one that, oh, you cost me money. Look at how much money you spend every year. No, I really don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's one of the good things that has come out of this,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and I think that it's really opened people's eyes to see that maybe we can bring manufacturing back, or we can move it to other countries. It also it brings about logistics and
Mm-hmm.
trade compliance. Those two are woven like this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you can't break those two.
Yeah.
So I think the first year we're not going to see any changes. Second year, possibly some changes. Hopefully, things will just kind of stabilize for a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll go from there. I don't anticipate them getting rid of the Section 301 tariffs.
Yeah,
I don't think
I
that's
don't think
going
that's
away.
gonna happen at least for the next 3 years. Maybe afterwards the tariffs lower down a bit, but even then, it's not gonna completely disappear. That's what I think.
Yeah,
I mean, for the people that are hoping otherwise, I feel like it's kind of a false hope.
yeah.
It's not gonna happen. They're not gonna disappear just like that.
No, and I don't. I know they've talked about joining. It's not TPP, but the trade agreement in Asia.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know how that'll work.
Yeah.
That'll be
Hmm.
interesting to see. The problem with that, I would say it would be a yes if China wasn't involved. But the fact that China is involved, I don't know how we'd be able to do that.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
I was gonna say the same thing, especially with their new export control laws and everything. I mean, it's gonna be
yeah,
hard to become part of a deal where they're part of the deal. It
right.
kind of messed up the whole deal overall at the end.
Right. I had
Mm.
to go through, and we had one of our companies in France that wanted to sell to Huawei. Okay.
Uh,
And we had to go through all of the machinery. Is there any US made? Is there any software? We had to go through
hmm.
everything to determine if we could sell to
Yeah.
Huawei. You know,
Hmm.
with China and their export controls now, um, I don't see where there's going to be a bridge
Yeah.
on that.
Hmm.
So it's gonna. I think it's still going to be. We're still going to have some volatile times.
Hmm.
Rare earth metals. I think that's a category that is going to be critical.
Yeah.
I think we need to look at recycling more.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
take what's already out there and recycle it, and then we can sell it again.
Hmm.
Because if China cuts that off,
Hmm.
the rest of the world's going to be in trouble.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it'll
No,
it'll
definitely.
be interesting to see what happens. But in the next year, I don't see anything really changing right away.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel like it's kind of gonna be a continuation of the last 4 years, kind of like the same path, and nothing's gonna change much. Well, Katie, our time's up. I
Well,
just wanna,
that was
I just
fun.
wanna, I just wanna say thank you again for joining me on my
Thank
channel,
you for
on
having
YouTube and
me.
LinkedIn. I really appreciate it, and thank you so much for input on everything, on the broker exams, on who should be applying where, and every single thing. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much again.
You're welcome, and everybody have a nice night. If anybody has any questions or whatever, just connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you. Okay?
Perfect. That sounds good. Take care.
All
Bye,
right.
everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.